Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we are going to talk about my impossible March TBR. As you guys know, in the month of February, I participated in the Battle of the Girl Bands, which was absolutely fantastic. I had a lot of fun. However, because of the fact that it was a readathon and it was for points and I didn't want to let my team down, I really focused on books that I wanted to read that were smaller. So I read a lot of books that I enjoyed, but I got away from my love, my heart. I got away from those chunky reads. And I want to reincorporate that into my March TBR with a bang, essentially. So I want to really focus on big books in March and to kind of even out my reads. I want to raise my page count. As you know, one of my yearly goals is to make sure that my page count is around 400 by the end of the year. And I've got plenty of time, so I'm not worried about it. But I do know that those books have been kind of put on the back burner. So that's what this TBR is all about, is, you know, making some room for those big books. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you guys watched my previous video, you saw some of my March TBR hopefuls for middle grade March. And I really think that these two goals pair well together because some of these chunky reads are very taxing mentally and they take a lot of energy. And so I do think that pairing them, you know, maybe every other book that I read could be a chunky book and then a middle grade book. That way I'm giving myself a little bit of a brain break in between the complex worlds that I'm going to get myself into this month. But I am really excited, so let's go ahead and talk about those books. First, I do have 4 buddy reads that I plan on doing in the month of March. So on top of my chunky TBR, I am also reading some other books with friends, which I'm really excited about. These are not necessarily chunky reads. Some of them are a little bit longer, but they're not what I would consider a longer book or a chunky book. But I am still really excited about them. So the first is The Tainted Cup. I pre-ordered this. This is the book that I talked about in my small book haul that I did a little bit ago. It is a fantasy mystery Sherlock Watson vibes, and I could not be more excited to get to this. It's also part of my physical TBR, and yeah, I'm reading this with Leandra, if I didn't say this already, and so I am pulling her into the fantasy realm, you know, with a mystery. So I'm trying to pull her in with something that she is familiar with, and yeah, I'm hoping it's a good time. The next buddy read is with Katie, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic. This is a world of the Schwabs that I have wanted to get into forever, and Katie and I were on sprints at some point in time in February, and we both realized that we hadn't read it. We're like, hey, why don't we read it together? And so yeah, that's where this came from. I have no idea what this is about. I know it's a fantasy world. I know that it deals with colors in like different cities maybe are different colors or different realms are different colors. I'm not sure. And I really don't want to know. I've loved V. Schwab in the past and I can't wait. The next buddy read is another book with Leandra, and that is The Spare Man. This is a book I believe Leandra pre-ordered or she purchased it. She has it in her physical collection. And I know it's a mystery, but I honestly don't have any other recollection of what the premise was and what the synopsis was. I'm just excited to get another buddy read. I was gonna say that this was the first time that Leandra and I had 2 buddy reads in 1 month, but I guess that's not true because we did that last month. With Nell, we had 1 buddy read that was just me and Leandra, and then we had a buddy read with Nell. So maybe we're starting a trend. We'll see. And the last buddy read is a buddy read that's tentative. I haven't confirmed with this person yet, but I am going to be reading Nothing to See Here with Laura, unless Laura is no longer interested. So the only thing I know about this book is that it is about some children who I think are in the foster system, and they are exploding children, like spontaneous combustion, and someone adopts them and tries to help them. That's all I know. I'm excited. It sounds weird, and I love the cover. Every time I see it, it intrigues me. So yeah, I can't wait for this one either. On to those chunky reads. So 2 of these are on my physical TBR, and yes, only 2 of them. Maybe not by the end. Maybe I will decide to buy them, but one of those is The Engines of Chaos. This will be my primary physical read because these are not on audio, at least not for me. And I am so excited to get back into this world. This is The Age of Uprising, I think is what the series is called. Yeah, The Age of Uprising, if it will focus. And this is book 2. I think book 3 is supposed to come out this year or maybe early next year. I'm not exactly sure. But it is about an empire that is in turmoil, in chaos, and you follow a noble family, and they are kind of spread out within the kingdom, and you get to see all these cogs and gears working in this massive kingdom, and some pretty dangerous things, some high stakes are happening, and I freaking loved the first book, so I can't wait to continue the series. The next physical book is The Poison Song. So this is another, it doesn't actually seem super chunky, but I feel, yeah, it's 561 pages, I think. Yeah. So it is pretty chunky, and this is the culminating book in the Winnowing Flame series. The first one was Ninth Reign, which I absolutely loved. The middle book was it was okay for me, but I'm hoping that the last book doesn't let me down in the culmination of the series. We shall see. This follows a cast of characters as well that is in a world that some things are happening that are odd. One of the characters is a scientist who is studying these events that are happening that have happened in the past. There is an elven-like race that has almost immortal life, but they have almost died out because of something that happens within the first book. I don't want to give too many spoilers. And those are the people that kind of hold the history of what's going on in the world right now. And so the world's in a bit of trouble, and you follow this cast of characters trying to figure it out. The next book is not a physical read, but it is still a continuation of a series, and that is The Cursor's Fury. This is the third book in the Codex Alera series by Jim Butcher, and I talked about this on my like Chonky Reads video that I've done recently, and I have absolutely loved the start of this series. The first book I think was a 4-star or 4.25, and the second book was 4.5, and I have predicted that this one is going to be a 5-star read because the series just keeps getting better and better and better, and I freaking love it. And to give you a little bit about the first book, you follow a woman who is a cursor, and she is traveling in the desert with her mentor, and they are trying to figure out what's going on. I'm trying to figure out how much I want to give you guys. They're trying to figure out what's going on within the kingdom, and some dangers, some words, and some turmoil that's happening within the local villages, and so they're trying to gather intel. And you also follow a young boy in the kingdom. He's a shepherd, and he is someone who, it's very odd for people not to be able to interact with the Furies, which are kind of like elemental. So they're like water, earth, fire. So the elementals, some people can interact with them, a lot of people can interact with them, and then some people can kind of control those magics to a greater extent. So those are the cursors. And then you have Tavi, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since I've picked up the second one, but you have Tavi who cannot interact with Furies at all, and it has definitely impacted his life. And so you follow him, and man, this story is just so big. What do I even say? In the kingdom, there is a war that, or a past war that has impacted the kingdom. You have this espionage going on as well. You have a whole bunch of individuals that you get to follow that are within a kingdom, some of which are spies, some of which are actually for the kingdom. And you have all these different peoples that are also in the kingdom, some that have been involved in the past wars. And yeah, I am excited to continue and see what happens with Tavi. There was a romance in the last book that I really enjoyed, and I'm hoping to see that relationship continue. Also, just the growth of Tavi and some of the individuals who are in kind of the mess with him. I've just really loved the character development in this series. Next is Night Film. So this is a book I tried to pick up in February and realized that it is a mixed media book and I needed a physical copy. So my library now has a hold, or I have a hold on it for my library, so I should be able to pick it up in March. And this follows the death of a movie producer who is kind of notorious in the horror genre. And he's very eccentric, kind of has some oddities to his name, and no one has seen him in a really long time, and I think his daughter goes missing. And you're following like newspaper articles, blogs, and things like that to figure out what happened to his daughter. it was the little snippet that I listened to on Libby was very interesting, but I was having a hard time following, especially because I think you're meant to see a lot of what's described to you. The next book is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This is just because it's Brandon Sanderson. I do think that this is is this his first work or one of his earlier works? I'll put it up here on the screen if it's his first work. I think it might be his first work, but anyway, I don't know anything about the premise. I know that it seems, I feel like the cover looks zombie-esque, but I could be wrong. Once again, I know nothing about the premise. I just know it's a Sanderson book, and it's a Sanderson book I need to pick up. So next is another continuation of a series, and that is Blitz. This will be the third and final book in the Rook, which is up here, this black and white cover. So I read Stiletto earlier this year, and the Rook was just absolutely perfect. I freaking love that book, 5 stars. Stiletto, I think I ended up rating it 4 stars because it was more involved in the historical components of what the Rook was, and so now I'm finishing out the series with Blitz. If you haven't read The Rook, I've talked about this book a lot on my channel, but you follow a character named Miffany Thomas who wakes up and there is someone in their body. So I shouldn't even say Miffany Thomas wakes up. I should just say somebody wakes up in her body. And she finds a note, or they find a note in their pocket, and the note says, you have 2 options. You can either choose to become me, become Miffany Thomas, and live my life, or you can cut and run. And I have contingency plans for both, but you have to make this decision. And this person makes a decision and has to live with the consequences of that. Within this world, there are supernatural beings. There is obviously the mystery of who is this person in Miffany Thomas's body and why did this happen to them. You also have kind of a magical institution. It's not a school, but like a magical government entity is what I'll call it, that deals with some of the supernatural elements that are happening in the world. It's very fascinating. If you like fantasy mysteries, this is the book for you. And so the second book goes into the history of the magical entity, the magical government institution, and it also involves some of the characters from the first book, but there's not as much intrigue and as much mystery in the second book as there was in the first, and so I think that's where my interest kind of got lost. I'm hoping that it picks up again in the third book, but we shall see. The last book on this impossible TBR is Kings of the Wyld, and the only thing I know about this is it's talking about a gang, I think it's a gang of retired mercenaries have to come back together, kind of like a get the gang back together for one last adventure. And I loved this trope with Amina Al-Sarafi. I have loved it with, which this wasn't really a get the gang back together, but like kind of the good old boys vibe from Theft of Swords, like the camaraderie in a group that could exist. I'm not saying it does because I haven't read this book. I have a feeling I'm gonna like. And so that's why I'm picking this up. It is, I think it's considered epic fantasy. I don't know what part of it is fantasy, I think. Let me double check real quick. Yes, so it is epic fantasy, and it's also a debut. So I'm intrigued with that as well. And how could I forget? I forgot about Iron Flame. This just popped up on Libby today, so this was not on my original list, but this is a book I've been wanting to read. This is also a physical TBR book. So I do own Iron Flame, and I did not read it the month it came out, which is what I should have done, and I need to get to this. So this is another chunky read that I will be reading from my physical TBR, hopefully. So fingers crossed, I will be able to pick up 3 chunky reads from my physical TBR. I would absolutely love to get all 3 of those done, and then, of course, on top of that, all of the other books that are on this list. So wish me luck, guys. I'm hoping that by the end of March, I can tell you that I've read all 12 of these amazing books and that I've just had such a good time. I'm sure that things probably won't turn out how I think they will, but I can hope. A girl can dream, right? So let me know what books you guys are excited to read in March. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments. If you've read any of these and you're really excited to see my reactions to them, let me know that too. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.